Hey, what's up everybody? Welcome to another episode of How to Avalanche at Home. This will be the fourth episode that I'm doing, and this time around I'm going to focus on why it's easy to be a validator within the Avalanche network, Avalanche platform. This will serve as a continuation of the previous video, which was titled Why Avalanche? And this time around I'm going to talk more about why it's easy to be part of Avalanche. To give you a quick summary of what I'm going to cover, first, I'm going to talk about why it's easy to be a validator. There already is a few tutorials of how to launch a node that I've already shot. I'm going to give you some tips on how I launch my nodes, how I maintain my nodes. I will talk a little bit about Postman, which is an API interaction tool. Effectively, it's a graphical user interface that you can use to communicate with your node directly without, by using this tool, you won't need the command line commands, which actually is going to make your life a lot easier. And then lastly, I'm going to talk a little bit about how you can create an Avalanche wallet and how you can either delegate or stake through this Avalanche wallet. All right, before we begin, as always, please leave any comments that you have down in the comments section below. Otherwise, if you like the video, go ahead and press the like button and don't forget to subscribe so that every time we shoot a new video, you're going to get alerted. I've definitely heard your feedback from the previous video, so I'm definitely going to keep this video much shorter and much more concise. And please keep the questions coming because based on the questions, I am actually changing the content of the next videos. All right, before I switch to the screen share, let me give you a little bit of context as well. As you know, or as you may know from the previous videos, I am running a node at home. It's a residential network. I have a standard router. And the first section, I'm going to cover some of the things, some of the parameters that I specifically use for my node when I'm launching the node and when I'm maintaining the node. So let's jump right in. All right, so here I have actually a Raspberry Pi 4 node that I'm accessing through my Windows computer using the PuTTY SSH tool. This node is running in my cabinet in the other room. I'm effectively accessing it remotely. And as you can see, I've actually downloaded the source code from Avalab's team, and I've already built the binary that I'm going to launch. Now, if I list the contents of this directory, you're going to see the Avalanche Go binary. Instead of building from source code, you can download this directly from the web page as well, but I prefer looking at the code every now and then as well. Now, the obvious and standard way of launching the node is by typing just /avalanche go. In my case, because I have a residential network, because my node sits behind a retail router, I actually utilize a couple additional things. The first one I'm going to talk about is HTTP host. This is the parameter that will enable the HTTP interface of the node. HTTP interface is the interface through which we will communicate with the node using the Postman tool in the later stages of this video. You actually need to type the IP address of the node here for this to work correctly. In my case, I think my router assigned it .200, so I'm going to leave it like that. I don't recommend using a public IP address here because that will actually open up your node to the outside world. I never do it. I only manage my node within the network so that it's a little bit more secure. And in normal circumstances, I actually don't even enable the HTTP host. Again, this is more useful only when you're intending to communicate with your node. But once you have your node up and running, you actually don't need to use this parameter. The second one that I'd like to talk to you about, I just want to make sure I'm not making a mistake, is called dynamic public IP. This parameter is very cool. Basically, the Avalab's dev team noticed that a lot of residential nodes like mine were having a problem when the internet provider, Fios, Comcast, whoever that may be, switches the IP address associated with that home. What happens is the Avalanche node actually needs to initialize itself and know its IP address so that it can connect to the rest of the network, rest of the Avalanche network. And whenever the residential internet provider changed this number, it actually led to some issues. As a response to this, the Avalab's team actually built a feature which allows the node itself to in a recurring manner, frequently check that your IP address has not changed. If it does change, if it notices that the IP address changed, then it will go ahead and reinitialize itself so that the operation can continue seamlessly. I can't tell you how awesome and how cool this is because Before this feature, my node was having all sorts of problems every 2-3 days, and this feature actually resolved it completely after we reported it to the dev team. This is the parameter. I will also talk a little bit about one last trick. A lot of you have asked me this. Basically, if you have a remote node, how can you ensure that once you launch the node and exit the management console that you're seeing here, that your node can continue running? To do that, you simply need to type no-hop early, like before the command that you're intending to do, and then put an ampersand at the end. Effectively, and I'm going to simplify, what this does is it launches this application, then it releases the ownership of this application from the shell that you're inside. It basically says to the OS, go ahead and own this application even if I exit. So when I press enter, you will actually notice that it will give me something different than what we're used to when we're launching the nodes. And what it will instead do is it's going to print everything that you need inside of this nohop.out file. So if I actually less that file to take a look at its contents, you can see that my Avalanche node is actually launching. Here's my public IP address, and here is the port that I am going to use as a part of this launch. All right, let's first go to the postman.com/downloads webpage. This is where we're going to download Postman. Simply click the download the app option, select the operating system that you have. I have a 64-bit Windows operating system. The download and installation sections, I'm going to speed up so that, we save some time. All right, once Postman is installed, this is what it looks like. I'm going to explain this, but first we need to download the Postman collection by the Avalabs team. So the webpage is github.com/cgcardona. This is Gabriel's GitHub page where he is the person that actually created the initial Postman collection. We're going to click repositories, then we're going to find Avalanche Postman collection. In here, there are two files that we care about. The first one is called Avalanche Postman collection.json. The other one is an example environment that we're going to work off of. So first, I'm going to click the Postman collection.json file. Then I will click raw. Then I will press Control A so that it selects everything. I'm going to do right-click copy. Go back to my desktop. I'm going to say collection.json. Open it up, paste everything, and simply save the file. Go back to the web page, do back, and then click on the example environment file. Again, do raw, Control A to select everything, right-click copy. Let's go back here and let's say new text document, environment. This also needs to be .json, I believe. JSON, copy this, save, close. Now, when we're in Postman, we're actually going to import these two files. So you can simply click import, and then you can say upload files, and then just choose these two files. It's actually going to detect what they are, and it will simply import them. Once you click import, it will actually import those two things. The first one, the collection, is actually going to go under the collections tab, and then the environment is going to go under the example environments tab. All right, let's first talk a little bit about what collections are and what an environment is. So first, a collection is basically a grouping of predefined commands that you can use with an API. In our case, we have all of the Avalanche API commands that are available to you in the documentation. So if you actually go to the avalabs.org webpage, click on build, and then click on getting started, the first part is about how to launch a node. At this point, we already have that. And you will actually see a first command called info.isBootstrapped. Now, the info corresponds to the categories or the groupings, the subgroupings that we have in here. And the second part, which is bootstrapped, is going to correspond to a specific command inside of the info subgroup. You guessed it. Basically, the first part is always going to correspond to a folder or a grouping, subgrouping here. And the second part is going to correspond to a command. If you actually double click on isBootstrapped, then go to body, you are actually going to see that this part that you see on the documentation is going to closely align with what you see here. Now, the second part that's in Postman that's important is this URL up here. You are going to see an HTTP, a host, and a port. These are what we call variables. And if you look at any other command, you are always going to see these variables in there. The idea is you define these variables inside of the environment so that you don't have to retype it for every single command, and you can copy one command from the other. So let's take a look at the environment files. So I just chose the example environment. I'll click Manage Environments, click on it. Then you are going to see all the variables that are defined. If you remember, we are running a Raspberry Pi node that's currently running. It is not on this computer, so we're going to have to type an actual IP address in here. Even though it's not a remote IP address, it's a local network IP address, we still have to type it so that Postman will actually know where to send those commands. So let's do it. If you remember, this was the IP address that my router associated with my node. So I'm going to type it in. I'm going to say update, and then that's going to be it. All right, now that we have entered the IP address for our node, we are actually ready to send commands to it because we have started it earlier in the demo, if you remember. So I'm going to start with what we have in the documentation. It's called is bootstrapped. This command basically asks the node, is a specific chain of yours already bootstrapped? In this case, we're going to ask if the X chain is bootstrapped. So let's go back to Postman, go to info, and then go to is bootstrapped. Again, click on the body if you wanted to see the command, and you'll notice the chain is X. So if I send this is a question, and the node responds back to me saying it's false because it's still bootstrapping, getting the information from the network to complete it. We can check other chains as well. So for example, if I check the P chain instead of the X chain, I would simply change this parameter here. Again, I would send it. Again, it will tell me it's not done yet, and it has to bootstrap first. Let's also look at the C chain, see if it is done. Again, C chain is also not done. So I'm going to give a few minutes to the node, and it will finish bootstrapping. I will resend these commands, and we will see that it's returning a different result. All right, at this point, my node has completed bootstrapping, so I'm going to, basically I haven't changed anything in Postman. I'm going to send the exact same command, and if you noticed, it went from false to true. Let's again check the other chains. I'm going to send the same command to the X chain, and boom, you can see that that X chain as well as the C chain was bootstrapped. Let's do the P just for completeness sake, and as you can see, P is done as well. Now, the idea, as you can see, is very simple. You basically want to use, if you actually look at the documentation and you look at the different commands that are available, if you wanted to create a user, for example, you would go to key store, the key store subgrouping, and then you would go to create user. Again, for the purposes of this demo, I'm not going to go through the entire tutorial, but I'm going to show you another command just as an example. Let's take a look at what version we're running. If I go to the body, you can see it's a pretty simple command. I'm going to send this to the node, and it actually responds back with a different answer, which is actually the version. Now let's talk about some other topics. All right, so in the interest of time, I'm not actually going to go through the entire quick start tutorial, but I do want you to go through the entire thing. Everything that you see in here can actually be done through Postman if you choose to do so. And one thing that I want to show you before I leave the Postman section is, again, if I go back to Manage Environment, click on Example Environment, you are going to see a lot of values that are already populated for various things. These are just values that come with the example environment. So for example, if you wanted to create a user using this command, it basically says your username here, your password here. But if you go to the command, let's just take a look at it here. If you go to the create user command, click body, you will see that the variable is already inserted in it. So you would simply go to the environment, you would actually enter your username. Let's say my username was going to be FireStorm. I would simply do that. Let's do hard password 123, whatever, right? I would put that in, I would update, and I would just simply run this command through Postman. Please go ahead and give it a try and let me know how you get on. All right, let's change gears a little bit. Let's talk about wallets and what you can do with the Avalanche wallet. So I'm going to minimize it. The address that you want to go to create or access your wallet is wallet.avax.network. I recommend typing this always by yourself. Don't click on links people give you, because this is a potential security risk if the link looks like it's the address, but it's pointing to another place. I personally always type it myself. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to switch to the testnet so that I can demonstrate to you how to create a wallet. When you're creating a wallet for actual use, you need to keep this option as mainnet, but the procedure is actually going to be the same. So for the purposes of this demo, like I said, I'm going to click on mainnet and I'm going to switch to Fuji, which is the test network. The other thing that I personally like is switching to the dark background. You can do this by clicking this link here. And the next thing we're going to do is click the create new wallet. When I do that, it's actually going to ask me, do you want to create a key phrase? Obviously, the answer is yes. When I click this, it will actually give me the 24 words that represent my private key. I'll click on it, and as you can see, I just received the 24 keywords. Now, these words are for you and for you only. You should not share this with anybody because this represents your private key, which effectively unlocks your wallet. If you remember from my previous video, you have two numbers that you need to remember. The first one is your private key. This is not something you share with anybody. The second one is your public key, which represents your wallet, your address. This is the address that you can give to other people freely. So I'm going to give you a minute to actually type these or write these 24 letters to somewhere safe, ideally, on a piece of paper with a pen. And then we're gonna access the wallet from this point after. All right, you should have your 24 keywords written now. If you click the option, I wrote down my key phrase in a secure location, and click access wallet, it will actually ask you to fill some of them. I'm going to fill these words. Let's see, what's 11? That's fix. 14 is endorse. And then that's it. Once you fill the missing pieces and click verify, it will actually say congratulations, and now you can access your wallet. I'm going to show you the other way to access it. This is only the first time around, and what you're seeing here is basically your wallet. Now, there are a few things that are happening here. On the top right, basically, you have your public address represented both in text format as well as QR code format. On the left side, you have a bunch of options. One option if you wanted to send AVAX to somebody else. Another option if you wanted to switch your tokens from the X chain to P chain or vice versa. This is required for validation. One option called earn, specifically for validating or delegating. And then you have various other options that I'm not going to cover here. But again, if you're interested in these, please send me a question. Now, the important thing here is if somebody's going to send you AVAX, you simply need to give them this address. You do not give them the 24 keywords. You simply need to copy and paste it. There's a nice convenient button here. You can click it, and that's pretty much it. If you actually want to validate, you will need to switch chains, and I'm going to show that to you in the next part of the video. All right, next up, let's get some test AVAX so that we can demonstrate cross-chain transfers, basically transfer from X to P, and then delegation capability as well as validation. It's pretty much the same. So to do that, you need some test AVAX. To get some test AVAX, Avalabs team has a nice service called the Faucet. You can go to this address, faucet.avax-test.network. If you remember, this is the address that we would give people to send us any AVAX. So I'm going to go ahead and copy it, go to the Faucet service, paste it into the address section. I'm going to click I'm not a robot. It will actually tell me to click everything that has, there's no bicycles here. That's it. And I can request one AVAX once I complete that. I will request it. The Faucet sent test AVAX. So I should actually receive that pretty quickly. And as you can see, boom, I just received one AVAX. Let's do that a couple more times. In the interest of this demo, I'm going to speed that up for you so that you don't have to watch this for a long time. All right, as you can see, I've done that, what you saw earlier, 14 times, which gave me 14 test AVAX in my wallet. Now, if I click on earn, it's actually going to bring me to this page where it says you must have at least one AVAX on the P chain to become a validator or a delegator. Now, I already have 14 AVAX. However, this 14 AVAX lives on the X chain for the moment, and I need to transfer some of that to the P chain. So for that, I'm going to look at the cross-chain transfer. I will click transfer. Then it will bring me to the interface, which will allow me to basically do a swap. Now, in our case, we want the source where the tokens are going to come out to be the X chain and the destination to be P chain. You have a max button if you wanted to transfer everything to the P chain, but for the purposes of this demo, I'm only going to do 2. So I'm going to type 2 here. It will show me a fee. Cross-chain transfers do charge a fee, but that's fine. And I'm going to click confirm, and it will ask me to transfer. I will say transfer, and then it will create an export and an import operation, both of which, as you can see, are accepted. Now, you will see that my total balance went down because we paid a little bit of a fee to do the transfer. But if I refresh and actually show the breakdown, you will see that my X balance went from 14 to 11.998, but my P balance became 2. Now, if we go back to earn, you will now see that the validate and delegate options are now available to me. First thing we should do is delegation, because my node currently is actually running in the production network. So I'm going to start with delegation. Let's click delegate. And as you can see, there are a bunch of nodes that are available for me to delegate. So I can simply select any one of them. Again, this is a test network. And this basically says, this is the node ID right here. This is the fee. If you remember, if you're a delegator, you will pay a fee from your earnings, not from your main AVAX that you're delegating, but whatever interest you receive at the end of the delegation operations, a percentage of that reward is going to go to the node operator. In this case, it's 2%. Validator started on September 9th. Validator will end in August 28th of 2021. So I'm simply going to click max. That's going to give me the end time of August 28th. You can also click on the date itself, which will give you that window to choose a specific date if you want. I will click the max option, and it will say, do you want your rewards to come to this wallet that you're inside of, or do you want to use a custom address? I never use a custom address, but if you want your rewards to accumulate elsewhere, you can do so. You would simply need to paste a different P address in here. I'm not going to do it. And that is pretty much it. All you have to do from this point on is just to say confirm. It will actually give you a summary of what you're doing. Here is your estimated reward at the end of that 251 days. If you remember, it's a percentage of the 2 that you're putting in. And that's pretty much it. If you say submit, it will submit that operation. That submission will take a second. As you can see, your transaction is now committed. What you're going to see here is that the staking amount is going to increase and your available P balance will become 0. All right, let's talk briefly about validation as well. Again, if we go to cross-chain transfer, do another transfer of 2 from X to P. Let's go ahead and do it quickly so that it actually is available to us as an option. Go back to earn, click add validator. The options are going to look quite similar. The important thing is you have to enter your node ID in this field, choose a timeline of at least 2 weeks up to a year. For the purposes of this demo, I'm just going to click max, and then put the amount that you want to stake into this field. Choose your delegation fee. Choose this wisely. This is the fee that people delegating to you will pay. And then once you actually input all of these options, it will let you do the validation. Because I don't have a node that's currently running in the test network, I'm not going to do it. But again, it's very simple. You simply need to enter the node ID, enter these parameters, choose the start times, and click validate. And that is pretty much it. There's nothing complex about it. All right, guys, as promised, that's it. I tried to keep it much shorter, much sweeter. Hope you like it. Please do let me know if you have any comments, if you have ideas about what we should be talking about in the next couple of videos, put them in the comment section. Otherwise, please don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. And hopefully I'll see you guys in the next video.